Customer service is what you do. Customer experience is how you do it. Customer service sometimes is playing defense and reactive to people calling up. They need support. They can't get into their account online, and that's really important. But customer experience is a collection of micro experiences that you have with the brand. How easy are you to do business with? I go online, I can't navigate. I can't find a phone number to call, you have it hidden or whatever. When I call, I love my advisor, Bill, but man, his receptionist is, like, oh my God, right? All those things, and that gets back to employee roulette and then making price irrelevant. I talked about that.
This is the Business of Advice podcast, where we help good advisors become great business owners. Today, I am excited to welcome the authority on world-class customer service, John DiJulius, to the Business of Advice podcast. John is the author of 5 must-read books and has worked with companies like the Ritz-Carlton, Lexus, Nordstrom, Chick-fil-A, and even us here at Advisors Excel. Actually, back in 2018, we had John speak to all of our advisors at our Journey event, which was one of the most talked about speakers we've had. In fact, he was so great, we brought him in January to speak to our internal team here at AE, and we still use a lot of the strategies that he taught us that we're going to hit on today. John, my friend, welcome to the Business of Advice podcast. Yeah, good to see you again. It's been too long, so feels like it was yesterday, but it was not. So, well, yeah, I want to talk about some of what you're doing. Obviously, I think the client experience, customer service, especially with COVID and everything we've gone to, is a hot topic, but maybe help set the stage for everyone that listens to this. What ignited your passion and really started you on this journey to understanding how to create a world-class customer service and client experience?
Yeah, it's 30 years ago. Me and my wife opened up this little hair salon, and we couldn't outbuild anyone. We didn't have there was salons everywhere, and we couldn't build a nicer facility. We couldn't out advertise them. We had no employees, no customers, no money, right? But in that industry, the customer experience was horrible. The employee experience was horrible. So we thought it would really help differentiate ourselves until we got deeper pockets and we could do the traditional ways of building a business, if you will. And so we just started, tackling the employee and customer experience. And we didn't want to be the best salon experience. We wanted to be the best experience in you or your wife's day. And that's really important, even today, because so many people will brag and say, we are the best in our industry, right? And that may or may not be true, but it's almost irrelevant, right? If your wife comes in and gets a pedicure today, she's usually not going across the street, down the street to our nearest competitor and getting something there and then comparing. She's meeting her girlfriends for lunch. She has a dentist appointment. She has to stop by the dry cleaner, right? And same thing with like your advisors, right? If I'm using an advisor, I then don't call another advisor and know if I have the best advisor or the worst advisor, right? So that's how it started. We just exploded, grew very fast, and then as we got deeper pockets, if you will, realize that still the best investment is the customer experience, which then led to me writing some books and going full time in the consulting, customer experience consulting space.
Yeah, which is where we first met or heard about you. But knowing a bunch of stories on kind of the background, how you started the salons, there are so many similarities to our advisors, right? Most of them are local independent financial advisors, tend to be, some are growing past that, I guess you would say, but they do have to let me say this in a really polite way. A lot of times it's not that hard to distinguish the customer service from other financial advisors they're competing against, but it is, how do you compare against everyone else they're coming into contact with, and really separating yourself on that when you don't have a big brand necessarily behind you.
Yeah, I've always wanted to give the same, cast the same hangover of dealing with me or my businesses as Disney does. I call it the Disney hangover. So if anybody listening has ever been to Disney, the best thing about going to Disney is when you're there. The worst thing is the 72 hours after you left, because everything sucks in comparison, right? And
Yep.
from the flight to getting back home, and you're asking people, and they're like down the corner, down the aisle, and you're like, whoa, I'm not at Disney anymore, right? So it's like you kind of want to give the Disney hangover of like, after I call my advisor, or and he's on top of it or she's on top of it, and remember stuff and asks me how my 3 boys are and blah blah blah. Then I call my accountant or my lawyer or whoever, and it's like, damn, like they're nothing like. Why can't everyone be as good as my advisor?
Yeah, no, that's good. I always say Disney's fascinating. Their product is basically they have a product that you stand in line for 40 minutes for a 2-minute ride, and somehow have made it the happiest place on earth. So it's, as someone who hates standing in lines, every time I'm like, this is fascinating. So let me ask you, because you have the DiJulius group set up that helps other businesses figure out like, how do they improve this? When you're working with clients, or when they bring you in, how many of them bring you in realizing that they have a problem they need to fix, versus those who feel like they've got it all put together? And how do you help both of those? If they have a problem, how do you go about identifying how to fix it, versus if you walk in, they're like, hey, we think we're pretty good, we'd like you to look. How do you tell them like, hey, here's some of the areas where you kind of suck?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. No one bad hires us, right? You think like, you look at our client list, it's the Ritz-Carlton and Starbucks and Chick-fil-A and you guys and so many great clients. It's like, why are they hiring you and not Spirit Airlines or, those types of companies, right? But there's no ribbon cutting ceremony at being world class, right? It's progress, not perfection. We want to be better today than we were last month, last year, and then hopefully a year from now, we'll be embarrassed at the experience we were delivering today because we're so much better. So I think we tend, every business tends to overrate themselves a little bit, and then they realize, oh, we got more gaps in here than we realize. But it's just looking at the biggest thing is the enemy of great customer experience is inconsistency. And, inconsistency is employee roulette, right? And if the level of your experience is dependent on which employee you get on my team, right? That's horrible,
yeah.
Right? It's like, if you get Lindsay, oh, you'll be happy. Oh, you got Nicole today?
Uh-oh.
I hope she was having a good day. Or, how did she sound? Or I'm holding my breath by your action. Right. And so that's what you really got to work on, is that, you just have a really high level consistency, whether you're dealing with the receptionist, whether you're dealing with IT, whether you're dealing with the advisor, whoever that may be.
You said something there. I have a good friend who says all the time, he says, success leaves clues. And something, the note I just made is like, bad customer service companies don't hire you. The best are who are hiring you, right? It's one of the things I consistently see. Our biggest and best advisors are the ones who always come to our events. They never miss them. And they're the ones who probably don't need to come, but it's that whole thing of like, success leaves clues. There's a reason they're the best, is they constantly put themselves in that environment.
Paranoid that,
Yep.
Someone else is closing in on them, or there's something that they're not doing. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, people listen to, podcasts and listen to all this stuff. Well, they're all motivated. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a reason why they consume, right? They consume. And that's, I always say, we got to be the best at what we do. We have to consume like Joey Chestnuts. You remember Joey Chestnuts?
Yeah.
15-time ESPN hot dog eating champion. But we got to consume our expertise, our content, like he consumes those hot dogs, right? And just never be able to get enough. And in your case, in every case, advisors is not just the technical part of it, right? Yep. It's building the relationships, the rapport, anticipating their needs, and helping them through, good and bad times.
So I want to talk about something you just mentioned, and it's that luck of the draw on what employee you got. I think the thing, we just had a big event last week and 400 advisors together, and probably the consistent thing I was hearing, I'm sure you're hearing this from a lot of companies that you consult with, is just this labor issue that everyone seems to be facing right now, and trying to find people that are passionate about delivering a world-class customer service. What are some tactics that I'll just say that our advisors should be looking at, or what are things that you recommend to make sure that you can overcome that, understanding right now is a little bit of a challenge in the labor market, making sure that there's consistency across no matter what person that you have that interaction with?
Yeah, and there's a lot to unbundle there. The hardest thing for me to say, and what's easy to say but do, is it's better to lose the sale than the reputation, right? And as a business owner, you, me, and all your advisors, like, we want growth. We want growth. It's why we started our own business. But right now, if I am looking the other way and keeping someone on my team I shouldn't, or hiring someone and fast tracking them, throwing them into a position so we can keep up with demand, and I service you, take your business, whatever that may look like, seat you at a table that a hostess is going to be your server tonight who's never waited. I'll never get that reputation back from you. You're going to do brand terrorism and never want to come back, versus saying, we're fully committed tonight, for the next week, the next month. So we just got to be really careful. It's better to lose the sales than the reputation, because the long run. I like to, in the best businesses I've seen, they are more about, finding people with good soft skills, positivity, and training them on the hard skills. The hard skills are in most cases trainable, but if you're not a happy person, you don't like people, all the training in the world's not going to help you with that.
Yeah, I hear a lot of that from some of the businesses that we've talked about, et cetera. We had the former chief marketing officer from Chick-fil-A speak at one of our events, and he said that he's like, we hire for attitude and train the technical, right? Versus vice versa. And I think that's a big part of it. Anything that people should be looking for in that attitude? So as they're interviewing and they're trying to hire people, are there any specific things that you do, any tests that you have, any way that you're trying to make sure that you're getting someone that has that kind of happy can-do attitude?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is to make your interview process ungameable. First, I think there should be on a recruitment experience, right? There should be an onboarding experience, and especially today, right? Back 10 years ago, in our day, I think people heard about a good job. They went, interviewed, and hoped that they got it. They probably got it. Well, today it's different, right? People are interviewing 5-6 different places to see what the best deal is, whatever the best deal is that they're looking for, right? They're not just interviewing with your company or my company. So that's where I think a recruitment experience, to make everything else they go to pale, and it's the Disney hangover, right? I go from this interview and the way they took care of me and treated me in this, but also making your interview process ungameable. So I know in an interview, you're going to ask me, John, tell me about your 2 drawbacks. And I'm going to, I got it ready. I'm going to say, Cody, I am a workaholic and a perfectionist, right? Bam, I nailed that one. So we've learned from Chick-fil-A and all these great companies, they do the interview process where you don't know what they're really judging. So one interview process is doing group interviews, right? On the first interview. So instead of wasting 6 hours with 6 different candidates, you spend 1 hour with 6 different candidates, and then you ask them, these questions. You go around and you'll answer first. Tell me a time when you had to go above and beyond for a customer, and the questions are totally irrelevant, right? And the candidates think what they're being judged on is who has the best answer, right? So you're like, all right, you're thinking of the best answer when it comes to you. But what they're really looking for is what the candidates are doing when the other candidates are answering, right? Are you peeking at your Apple Watch? Are you totally checked out? Are you thinking about or you're smiling at what she just said because it was funny, and you're, making her feel good? Like, those are the candidates. So there's a lot of things like that. There's a CEO that when it's an executive interview and he's involved, he takes them to his favorite diner. And his favorite diner knows that whoever he walks in with, they have to screw up everything that his guest orders. And it's called the wrong order test to see. So if you order, French toast, you're getting hash browns and, scrambled eggs. If you ask for, ketchup, you're getting, mustard and everything else. And it's just to see how he handles himself in that situation, in a pressure situation, how he treats someone. So those are two opposite extremes, but there's a lot of ungameable ways. Just see who truly people are.
That's really good. Okay. One of the things you talk a lot about is a customer service revolution. In fact, for those who are watching online, you have the shirt on, right? Talking about a revolution here. So I think your definition of that would challenge the paradigm a lot of people have of customer service. Will you just talk about what you mean by that and just explain it to everyone listening?
Yeah, I mean, it's our mission. It's my national anthem. I wake up and pledge allegiance every day to it. I love it. A customer service revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what employees and customers experience. This shift produces a culture that permeates into people's personal lives, at home and in their community, which in turn provides their business with higher sales, morale, brand loyalty, and thus making price irrelevant. So that's the whole thing. It's just, doing so. It includes employees and vendors and community and all that.
What would be a couple of the, let's say, big shifts from what maybe most people think of when it comes to customer service versus this revolution?
Yeah, and really today, customer service and customer experience are used interchangeably, and they're totally different, right? Mm-hmm. Customer service is what you do. Customer experience is how you do it. Customer service sometimes is playing defense and reactive to people calling up. They need support. They can't get into their account online, and that's really important. But customer experience is a collection of micro experiences that you have with the brand. How easy are you to do business with? I go online, I can't navigate. I can't find a phone number to call, you have it hidden or whatever. When I call, I love my advisor, Bill, but man, his receptionist is, oh my God, right? All those things. And that gets back to employee roulette and then making price irrelevant. I talked about that. Making price irrelevant doesn't mean we can double our fees, right? And not lose existing or potential customers. What making price irrelevant means is based on the experience your brand consistently delivers, your clients should have no idea what your competitor charges, right? And there's so much there to unpack. Your brand consistently delivers. That means it's not just dependent. I got Cody. It's whoever I come in contact with, they're so great and so polite. And so we'll help you with that. And so, I'm price sensitive. I've driven 3 extra miles to save 50 cents on a product, not realizing I just lost in that exchange, especially with the gas prices today. Yeah. But I also have, like all of us do listening, I have, a couple of people I do business with personally, right? A couple of people I do business with professionally that I am so loyal to because the peace of mind, the expertise, the relationship, the brilliant comeback they've made when they've dropped the ball, that I recommend them. I talk about them when people say, well, hold on, how much do they charge? What's their rate? I'm embarrassed. I don't know. I don't know how they compare to their competitors, nor do I care, because we've all learned the hard way. The cheaper we go, the more it costs us, right? Yep. And so we want to be there where people are bragging about us, but don't even know how we compare to the competitors because they're not out looking for it.
One, I have one thought and then one question. I'll start with the question because I wasn't going to ask this, but you said something there and I've heard you talk about it. Will you talk about the opportunity to create an experience when you do make a mistake and just some advice around that? Because I always say I think it's one of the greatest gifts you're given as a business owner. Now, you don't want a lot of those gifts given to you, right? That indicates there's something else going on. But when there is a mistake, you have an opportunity to just cement that relationship. It just maybe some advice around how to handle those and some practical tips there.
Yeah. And so that's one of our commandments. We say we want to be a zero risk company to do business with. And if you think of Nordstrom's or Amazon or Apple, they're zero risk. Doesn't mean they don't drop the ball. Okay. Here's what it means. They great companies drop the ball less, right, than their competition. okay, which is great.
Yep.
But just as important is when they drop the ball, right? Maybe everyone else is doing it 8 to 10% of the time. They're only doing it 2 to 3% of the time. But when they drop the ball, they pick it up and make it right. And I just wrote a blog on it. It's called the Service Recovery Paradox. And there's scientific proof that if I give you what you are looking for, right, versus I screw up and make it right, you will be more loyal on the second one than the service recovery paradox. If you were impressed, I owned it, I immediately addressed it, apologize. There's something there. You're more loyal. So I love giving this story. Back when I was involved in my salons, 28, 30 years ago, I've always had a policy. If it gets to me, it's free. Okay. I mean, if you got to call me up, I'm not going to argue with you. So it's also to tell my managers, take care of it. Right. Because no one wants to call the general manager, the CEO, the owner up. If they do, they are really hot by this time.
Yep.
So a woman calls me up. And also whatever I give the client or the guest comes out of my manager's quarterly bonus. So handle it, right? So a woman calls me up and says, we got hair color on her suit jacket of a suit, a business suit. And I'm like, God, I'm so sorry. Can we get it clean for you? And she said, tried, can't. I said, okay, can we, go get you a new suit? And she goes, they don't sell it anymore. And I said, can I send you a check? And she goes, well, it's $350. I'm like, can I send you a check? And she couldn't believe I didn't want to see it, know how old it was, anything. I after I hung up, I look up her history, and she had been coming for a few years, 7 times a year, never referred to anybody. So I send her a $350 check and a gift card for like a facial or massage for inconvenience. A year later, I was just curious if we retained her. I look her up. She came in 7 more times. So I was like, oh, that's great. We kept her. Then I clicked on a referral. She referred like 15, 16 people, right? For $350, what kind of advertising can I spend that'll get me 16 new clients? So I tell my employees, get color on everyone's clothes, right? So yeah, it is an opportunity to be a hero and really show where other people are like, well, what do you want me to do about it, right? I can't give you that time back or whatever you're complaining about. I love the being zero risk.
Yeah, to me, it's such an easy way to build that relationship. And I think that's where people see, like, what type of person am I really dealing with? When crap hits the fan, how are they going to respond? The other thing I love that you said is that you've empowered your team to make those decisions, right? It shouldn't even have to get to you. You've just embedded that culture of like, hey, let's fix it and make it right. So, if it's come to me, I'm going to do it anyway. So why let it boil up and come to me? So let's fix it there. The comment I was going to make, I said I had that question. One of the simple things I notice sometimes, and I shouldn't say blows my mind, but I tell advisors when I see it, a lot of times they have someone who's either answering the phone or like our advisors, seeing a lot of people in person, face to face, and that front desk reception, director of first impressions, whatever they call them, a lot of times is not friendly. And I'm like, I don't, the simplest thing I would think you would ever want in a business is the first person they're going to run into to be friendly and outgoing. And so I think that's one of those simple things for any business. Like if you own a restaurant and your hosts aren't friendly, probably not the best first impression. If you're an advisor and the first person they meet or talk to isn't friendly, like that's something you've got to fix immediately. So I don't remember what you said back when we were talking 5 minutes ago about that, but it's just something, a note I made of, I see that mistake made all too often.
No, if you're happy, tell your face. Put mirrors by monitors, by phones, by computers, because if you're happy, tell your voice. Like I can hear if someone's happy. Yeah. I can read in an email if someone's happy. Yeah. Right. And so, a lot of times we'll videotape and take pictures of our staff in action, because I'll say, Cody, look, I want to show you, this is you talking to some clients and you checking someone in, and you could be surprised saying, wow, I look serious. Right. And so it just helps. Oh my God, I was suffering from RBF right there. And I got to remember to, because especially when we're newer at a job, and we're intimidated of the technology and what buttons to push, all of a sudden we get this wicked, intense face. And, so that's why I've always loved in B2C where name tags will say Cody Foster, in training. When I see that, I want to help him. I'm like, no, it's that button over there, right?
Yeah,
but
that's
if
good.
I don't see that, I'm going to fold my arms and be mad that I got the dumbest guy in the building, right? So it makes me have more empathy for someone because I know what it's like to be, the newest person in the building.
That's good. One of the other books that you wrote a couple years ago was called The Relationship Economy, which is another fantastic book, and it was a follow-up to the Customer Service Revolution. But explain what the relationship economy is, and then I'll ask you some questions like a little deeper into it.
Yeah, building deeper customer connections in the digital age. And the past 15 years, 20 years, it's all been about the digital revolution, which I love. I love technology. But it's come at the cost of relationships, and the pandemic has only accelerated that. And every generation is suffering, right? Old guys like you and I, right, who didn't grow up on all this technology, but we are using devices. We are, and so our people skills are slowly eroding. And then we have generations or 30 and under that, no fault of their own, have only grown up on devices, and they're totally relationship disadvantaged. So we have to help remind every generation and teach the younger generations how to have these relationship building skills. And I will tell you, 30 and under, they are awesome. Once you give it to them, it's surprising. They are great. I think they're better than the previous generations, but they've just never been exposed to it.
One of the things that I saw during COVID, and so I want you to talk to this a little because it's very specific to what you were talking about in the relationship economy. So all of a sudden our advisors had to go virtual, right? Whether that was instead of doing in-person events or doing webinars, instead of doing in-person appointments or doing Zoom appointments. A lot of them saw that as like, this is a great opportunity, man. I'm going all virtual from here on out. And one of the things I caution them against is that's not take this short-term pandemic that forced everyone to interact with you. In fact, I think the opportunity is going to be in the people that get back to seeing people in person. You're going to be able to create some bonds and connections there that others aren't. But there's some incredible efficiencies that technology, Zoom meetings are great, can be great for the client too. They don't have to drive an hour in Atlanta traffic to come in and see you. Can you maybe just talk about what you're seeing with the best and how they're merging, technology and some of the efficiencies it creates, but also what they're doing to have that human relational connection?
Yeah. And you're right on so many points. We have to, especially with the labor shortage, and there's no end in sight. We don't know. We do have to use artificial intelligence and different things for the mundane tasks that are mind-numbing to employees and frustrating to customers. Like yesterday, I had to bring my laptop into Apple. In less than, it seemed like 90 seconds, I went online, booked an appointment at my closest Apple store. Boom, great. Like that, thinking of calling an 800 number and being stuck is just a horrible thought. Yep. But then I got to meet the genius and tell him all about my problems and why my problems are the biggest problem he's ever been, getting all that off your chest, right? So that's it. Anything that could be removed, Calendly and appointments that don't necessarily, but you have the option for clients that, don't want to use that. So merging the technology we'll still keep it. Now, there is one thing that keeps me up at night as a business owner, and you hit on it. And as a business owner, as a consultant, because it's a problem in both my jobs, and it is the eroding workplace culture that because we are all working from home, there is just no way that I can, I believe relationships happen in the rabbit holes. And so if we work together in any capacity, boss, peer-to-peer, whatever that is, and I used to see you in the office and we were, you're getting Keurig and I'm behind you and I say, Cody, what's going on? You say, yeah, my son just, or I have this client that I just think I'm in over my head. I'm like, oh, Cody, I've worked with that type of client. I could totally help you. Or, vulnerability. And I had that happen with my son too. And we don't have that in Zoom. We're on a tight schedule. We have a 20-minute meeting. We got to go over sales. We got to go over goals. We go over this. And there's no time for those innocuous rabbit holes that will create an emotional connection. And that's what worries me. And it also, same thing with your clients, right? You do want to get face to face. You do want to see pictures of their family behind them. You do want to get to know them instead of just more of a chop. All right, what you needed to check who your beneficiaries were on your 401k, and boom, boom, boom. All right, got it there. Boom, done. Next, and that's now you're a commodity.
It's and we could probably spend a whole podcast episode just talking about this, right? And just where things are headed. One of the things I think I've noticed is a few maybe observations. I think COVID made us realize how important bringing people together actually was, and we've probably put more back into that. And what I'm seeing is like our advisors that first year, everything was kind of new and it felt fun and exciting. But now, like we just had our Journey event, which is the same event you spoke at a few years ago, and it was our most attended ever because I think everyone just now they're like, we want to be back around people and have those conversations. Obviously we have great speakers like you come in and speak where they're able to get stuff, but so much of the magic happens at lunch or at breakfast or at the bar, after the event, stuff like that. So I think really being thoughtful about that as a business owner, not just for your internal team and culture, but even potentially for clients, depending on what type of business you have, is a big part. The other is, I think being thoughtful about it with your culture. We've made the decision and we've been kind of vocal with our team about we're going to be a work from work. And a lot of it is built around culture and community and a lot of other things we won't have time to get into. But I know some people aren't doing that, but I have a really good friend and he said this well. He's like, what I am doing is I'm investing a lot in making sure we're putting events to bring our people together, outside of work. And I think people are going to have to do that. I don't think you can go all virtual and think it's not going to impact your client experience, your culture, people sticking with you, all those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be that human connection to realize, he's more than a boss, right? He's really a good guy. When the times I've met him, he really seemed to care when he'd ask me about, whatever. And, it's hard to replicate that in a strictly virtual world.
One thing our advisors, and you talk about this a little in the relationship economy, they're starting to see now, they probably have some clients that are greatest generation boomers, and now maybe even having clients that are through 3 generations. Any big differences that you see between those generations that we need to be thinking about as business owners around how we provide an experience to each of those?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the younger generations, care more about their time and speed and efficiency. And so we got to meet them where they want to be versus where, older generations, still prefer the old phone call or face to face. And that's great. And the biggest thing that we have seen, the fastest growing businesses segments are the ones that we went from a do it yourself society to a do it for me society. Right. And the old adage is you can't buy time is untrue. Like you absolutely can buy
for
time.
Sure.
Amazon, they say Amazon, and I don't know what this means about me because I am not the average. They say the average Amazon customer saves 75 hours a year by buying on Amazon. You think about driving, traffic, parking, trying to flag someone down in a, can you tell me where, check out, all those things driving back. Right. And I buy something on Amazon, 3 times a day. So I don't know what it saves me. Right. But so I think it's really important if we can help, people save time. They're much more willing to spend money on time saving devices than anything else.
Yeah, that's really good. I hadn't thought of that, but that is very accurate. I mean, it saves you a ton of time there. So I think any business owner thinking about what can you do to create some efficiency and save time is important. One thing I want to, because this has become actually a pretty big deal in the advisory space, is the SEC actually passed some rules that now kind of allow for, I'll call it reviews and testimonials, which in the past that was hard to have. And I know there's some incredible opportunity around there. On the flip side, sometimes I see people think that that's all that matters is do we get good reviews, and that says we create a good experience. Can you maybe talk to just the difference between really a customer experience and reviews, but then also how do you utilize reviews, whether that's Facebook, Google, et cetera, in the business to spread a message that you can deliver a good experience there?
Yeah, and there's studies now. It used to be the best advertising was word of mouth. Now it's word of mouse, right? And if
Yeah.
I'm unfamiliar with you or your company, I'm gonna look up and probably see what people are saying. But I think even more importantly, I think a really cool metric that too many companies haven't jumped on is called earned growth rate. All right, earned growth rate, and what that is saying, my new business in this last quarter, last month, last year, whatever period, what percentage came from referrals of my existing client base and or existing clients spending more versus SEO, traditional advertising, and all that. And when you're to me, better than anything is if I have an ambassador of my brand telling people they got to do business with me, right? You can't beat that. And we all know if someone comes to us that has done business with us before, or they're someone important in their life is demanding they use us, that sales cycle is real easy.
Yep.
And they're not shopping you. If they found you on SEO, right, that means they also found 5 other people, and they're shopping and they're looking, and price becomes really important and all those things. So I just think, and if we have multiple advisors on our team, there should be a report that says, Cody, 22% of your clients referred clients to you, but that's beneath the company average of 32. And how come Derek has 72%, right? Or whatever that looks like. Holding people accountable. And there's a couple of things there. You better be doing a great experience. And you better be, tell them how important, the highest tip, the best compliment I get is a referral of a family or friend.
How, so there's bless you, there's a lot of different ways out there to get referrals, a lot of different systems, a lot of different coaching around it. Let me ask you something very specific around it, though. Have you found a ideal time to either ask for referrals, or a time that tends to be most conducive to people being willing to give those?
Yeah. So first, I found a time that I think is the worst time to ask. Okay. And it's sending you a survey after we just did something with you, whatever the business model is, and saying, on a scale of 1 to 5, blah, 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 can we use you as a testimonial, and I just think it cheapens it. And now it looks like it was a marketing piece, and not that we were truly wanted to know how we did there. I think they need to be separated. I've seen customer satisfaction surveys ask, how happy were you? Can we use it? And do you have 3 people you'd recommend? Like, I just think that cheapens it.
Yeah.
Right now, if you give me 10s, say it was the best, whatever, then we could follow up at a different thing and said, hey, can we use this on our website or different places? Someone said this yesterday on a podcast, and I'm not sure, I've never heard it this way, but they said the best time to ask for a referral is right after you close them. I've never heard that before. I usually say it's after, we're celebrating something big and we've had a victory. I don't know if that's true or not. I would think it's a little odd that you just got me to sign a contract or whatever that looks like. And then you said, anyone? And it's like, whoa, dude, slow down. I don't even know if I like you yet. We haven't gotten working, but I think it happens organically when you become a brand, a partner that people can't live without.
One of the, I remember John Maxwell saying this at this event I was at. He said, one of the biggest problems with being forgettable is you're forgettable. And he was talking about, the best businesses build this remarkable experience. So when people, and I see this with advisors a lot, one of the things I think we lose track of is oftentimes when people are looking for an advisor, it's a timing situation, right? They're getting ready to retire. They inherited some money. They had a spouse pass away. The market's, tanking and they're worried. And the point he made that I think is so tied into what you just said about like it's a little more organic is you want to be so memorable and do such an incredible job at every step or every interaction that when they happen to be out at dinner and someone says like, oh, we're getting to retire, they say like, you got to talk to my advisor, right? And so I think that's a big part. I kind of agree. I don't know that asking them right after they become a client, I wouldn't refer you somebody. I hear more like 90, 100-day check-in. How are we doing? What's that first, I think it was Joey Coleman, I think who says, that first 100 days, what's that look like? So, but I think it's to your point, it's everything that you do to create this incredible experience that's ultimately going to lead to them wanting to talk about you when the time comes up.
Yeah, I mean, they basically co-brand themselves with you. They're so proud of you, and they just kind of drive people in their network crazy. Have you called them? Have you called them? And that's what you want. I really think if you're crushing it, you don't have to ask for referrals; they will come.
That's really good. I agree with that. Okay. Kind of the last big thing I want you to talk about, because this is the thing that we use at AE that we borrowed from you when we brought you in, but I think it's just been incredible. I know a ton of our advisors have implemented this, and it's called the concept of Ford. So kind of like the auto manufacturer, but will you talk through just this concept of Ford and the client experience, how this really creates a ton of intimacy with your clients, and how to implement it maybe as someone listening to this?
Well, and listen, I love to ask people, how many people in the room, if there's an audience, feel that they're really good at building a relationship with someone they haven't seen in a while, total stranger, you name it. And I usually have to count the hands that don't go up. Everyone's pretty confident. And I call BS. And why I call BS is because if I bumped into you at Starbucks this morning or at a networking event or whatever the thing was, and we spoke for 15, 20, 30 minutes, that doesn't mean I built a relationship. I could have very well have been speaking about myself for 15, 20, or 30 minutes. And we're all genetically coded to be preoccupied with what's going on in our life. It was my flight that was delayed last night. My son got in trouble yesterday at school, and my number one salesperson is rumors are that he's quitting, right? Blah, 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 blah. And that's a hard urge for all of us to turn off. So I always say, if you're to prove to me, if I'm going to prove to myself, if you meet my three boys, they know if I see you talking to them, they're going to have to answer this. You speak to anybody for 3 minutes or more, you have to learn two or more things of their Ford, Ford. And if you learn two or more things of the other person's Ford, you not only built a relationship, you own the relationship, because to each and every one of us, our own Ford is our hot buttons. It's what we geek out about. It's you talking about college football, right? It's all those things. So family. Are they married? Do they have kids? How old are their kids? What activities are their kids in? Oh, occupation, right? And all this stuff your advisors have to find out anyway. It's part of their thing. But occupation. What do they do? Who do they do it for? How long they've been doing it? What's their job title? Our recreation. What's what people do with their free time, evenings, weekends, is usually their biggest hot point. They might be runners. They might, coach little league. They might, do charity. And then the D stands for dreams, right? What's on their bucket list? What's their encore career that they're working towards? Where's their vacation home that they want to settle in? And so just by collecting that, having stuff in your software that has Ford, so I can go up and look and say, oh, that's right, Cody went to Washburn, and that he has a 17-year-old son and he loves K-State, and just those little things really help us take us from a transaction. My next is my 11 o'clock Zoom, my, whatever we end up calling them, my 401k, like we all transactionalize our clients, in a bad way, versus no, that's Cody, who's a father, a business owner, a person who's trying to, and you get to know that stuff.
I think the other thing we've seen too, one, we built this into our CRM system after you came and spoke, but it's also some, and maybe you can talk to this a little. It's having some depth behind those too, right? Not just knowing like you have a son, but that your son was a stud wrestler at Ohio State, and being able to follow up and have. So any thoughts around that too, just of like, maybe not just depth, but then how, so let's say I'm an advisor and I'm going to see, my clients maybe every 6 months are going to come in for a review or something like that. Is there a way to kind of identify some depth behind when you bring that up, that they're seeing that it's more than like, oh, I know you have 2 kids. How are they doing?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's exactly it. So it's not just a transaction. Listen, I got to believe that there's a lot of smart advisors out there. And if I asked, 10 of them, what I should do with my money and tell them what my goals are, I'd probably get a very similar recommendation, better than me.
Yep.
But what's going to separate it? Right. We like, do business with people that we personally like and that feels like that they care. And, I think that's really what it does. And I think there's a gift in every conversation if you're paying attention to it. And it could be as simple as, I find out that you're going to Charleston for the first time for your 25th wedding anniversary, and you've never been to Charleston. So after we hang up, I send you a link to some great restaurants in Charleston. Or that you're running your first Ironman, and I send you a link to how to prepare for your first Ironman.
Yep.
Or it could be whatever it could be. But some of these things take a few seconds, and then when you see and you're reminded, hey, Kansas State just won a huge thing. You reach out to that client and say, Cody, you got to be thrilled with your team winning and and it just keeps you in front of them. And in a non-soliciting way. And the next time someone needs something that you do, or they need something you do, they're not going to, go out and look for feelers and Yelp and think you're the guy, you're the woman, you're their, X.
Well, unfortunately, last week you would have had to call me and say like, "Hey, sorry about that tough loss there in K-State." So it's the pain. So we'll see. Maybe I can call you if the Guardians win. It's hard to say the Guardians, right? I'm so used to saying the Indians win the World Series. We'll see. So no, that's good. So for everyone listening, I'm telling you, this has been something huge for us. So it's family, occupation, recreation, dreams. I mean, really focusing in on what those things are with your people that you're connecting with is a huge
and our coworkers and our employees. Like, shame on us. Like when we do a management workshop and we have 10 leaders in the room, we'll give them all a sheet with their direct reports on it, right? You might have 10, you might have 15, whatever. And then we make you fill out the form. And the O doesn't count because you know what they do for a living, right? They work for you. But you'd be surprised. And I've been guilty of this too. Oh, sure. She's my assistant. She has 2 kids. Oh God, I think one's a girl, one's a boy, right? Like, that's horrible. We need to know the Ford of our employees. We need like another thing I bring up all the time, like our employees, especially the younger they are, when they get their first car ever, not their parents' car, they get their first car or their keys to their first place, right? Those are huge things that we should be celebrating. Like, my first car was a 1971 Pontiac Le Mans that cost me $213, right? It shouldn't have been allowed on the road. However, I will tell you, in the past 40 years, 50 or whatever it is, I've driven some nicer cars off showroom floors, right? But there's nothing as special to me as that 1971 Pontiac Le Mans, right? Because it was mine. It wasn't my parents. It wasn't my older brothers. And so we need to celebrate those things on our team. And when they have, know the Ford of our employees.
That's really good. You said something there. I'm just going to ask. I promised that last question was the last one, but are there any pivotal moments in a client relationship that you think are important to celebrate? You kind of brought that up with like if someone buys their first house, and you were talking more team member, but what about in the client kind of relationship?
I would think advisors, everything that's happening in my life, right? I mean, I would think, depending on how long we've been together, saving for my first house to, my midlife crisis convertible car to, paying for my son or daughter's wedding. I mean, it's like I to a funeral. Like, I got to believe that very few things happen in my life that my advisor isn't cued in on in some way. And I think they should be there. I always thought a good tagline would be there for you. There for you when you needed to buy your first
Yeah.
house. There for you when you needed to, go nuts on your daughter's, wedding or whatever that is. That's what my advisor was there with me every step of the way.
That's good. Okay, I know I've had you for a while. I love to end with just these quick lightning round questions. They can be one word, they can be a sentence. You can expand however you want to do it. So, but just ask everyone this. Okay, first one. Let's say since COVID started, is there a lesson that you've learned that you think you'll carry forward for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of silver linings coming out of COVID. One of them, there's a lot I can think of. One of them is the mental health, wellness of people. I think we have two distinct management leadership skills that we never had to have before. That no training, no class, no leadership since the pandemic. One is leading from a distance. We talked about that, right? How do you lead from a distance, create an emotional connection, have you willing to walk through a fire for me, right? Virtually, right? We got to figure that out. And the second one is recognizing what employees are going through. And that is still today really hard for me because I've never suffered from it. Yep. Right. And so I don't necessarily know the signs to look for. I don't empathize as well as I should. And, whether you're a leader or an employee, that has a family, we have people on our team that are suffering, that we have to be able to reach out and get them resources. But I also feel like in my situation, we have people on our team that aren't suffering. They don't, that's not something that they suffer with, but someone that their family does.
Yeah.
And help them kind of like I need help of taking my blinders off and thinking everyone's just like me and, finds the rainbow in everything. Yeah. Right. That's something that's really important that, we need to, at least I need to be better at.
It's a good one, man. I would tell you, not to get off too much, but we had a key team member, you'd probably remember him, and close friend who took his life last March. And I'm the same way. I've never really battled, with any mental health challenges. I've never had family members who have. And so it was a huge eye opener for me. I would have told you, I just told our advisors this last week about one of the things I think they really have to be focused on this. It's bad right now. I would have said prior to that, I would have guessed 3 to 5% of our team members were battling some sort of mental health. That could be depression, anxiety, stress, whatever. I mean, it's probably 35 to 40% of them. It has really been eye-opening. So I think that's a great answer. I think it's something that all of us have to be a lot more aware of right now because it's not getting better. Is probably the way to say it. And is, I didn't go into this earlier, but I think a big part of our work from work is that. I think the mental health of people being isolated and not having any community is going to be a huge, I think we're going to look back 5 years from now and say, like, what in the world were we thinking? So I could be wrong, but we'll see. So that's a great answer. Okay, what is one thing that you've done that graduated you from being a good business leader to a great business leader?
I think stumbling on a word. I have a word of the year. I just do this. I don't know if you do this. And energy was my word of I think 2019. I loved energy. And it's like, what kind of energy do you bring to a conversation, to a room, to that? And then, and so that was really important to me. And then the another one, and I don't know why I like E so much. The next year, my word was encourage. And listen, encourage is a great word. There's a lot of great words, but I stumbled on it when I was writing Relationship Economy. And I read something that said the Greek translation for encourage is to make others strong. And, it kind of like, encourage. Then I looked at the word encourage, right? Encourage, to put courage in. And I just had this whole epiphany that that's our job as human beings, as leaders, as parents, as whatever, is I got to fire you up with so much courage that you feel that you could do anything. And that maybe you even are ignorant to the fact that you shouldn't be, but you do it. Right. And that's the kind of boss I want to be. Is I want to, just put courage in everyone around me and have that impact on them.
Well, I'm guessing everyone who listens to this is picking up on that, right? Just the energy that you bring to any of those conversations, the events that you do, the content that you share. That's a huge part of it. So, so this may be a little similar, but what is there something that you're doing this year to drive your own personal growth that you're excited about?
I think it's just being recommitted to what I talked about earlier. What am I consuming? And what am I feeding my brain? So it's I'm religious about, certain podcasts I want to listen to in the morning when I'm getting a workout in, when I'm boarding a plane, and just making sure that, I am just getting an abundance of great, positive, inspiring ideas. And it could be on my health and fitness. It could be on being a better parent, spouse. It could be on a better leader, anything, but just try to, water each key element of things I need to be better at.
I love that. We all have to be careful of what we're feeding our minds. So, so similar. What is? It can't be one of yours, although everyone should read your books. But what is the one book that you've recommended most to other entrepreneurs or business owners?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just to anyone. Is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Yeah.
I just really like it. It's nothing, earth shattering, but it's just, it's that old thing, and I tie it to customer experience. I tie it to anything, especially finance. If you do or you don't today, it really doesn't matter. Meaning if I save 3% of my paycheck this week for my retirement, or I don't, my retirement account's not going to look anything drastically different. When I go to it, it's still, $103,000 in it, right? Like, and I didn't put anything, or I did, it's 106, whatever that makes it look like. But it's making the right choice over, and the compound effect. And I say it with customer experience. If you train your new staff or your existing staff on, how to put out fires and build relations, or you don't, today, this week, this month, sales isn't going to be much different at the end of this quarter. But in 6 months, next year, it's going to be a freight train going one way or the other.
It's funny. Darren's a good friend. He was actually our keynote speaker last week at our Journey event. But he goes, he's like, I don't even know how to describe the compound effect, because he said the same thing. He's like, not revolutionary, but it's like, it is just taken on, he's like, it sold millions of copies. It's like, I don't know how to explain it completely, but it is a great book if people have not read it. So, okay. Final question. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Surround yourself with great people and like really be picky. And if I'm viewed by who I surround myself with, I'm a life champion. Like, I really am picky. Got a lot of acquaintances, like a lot of people, but I'm really picky on who my 5 average is, and from my friends to, and I, you hear the thing, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. I don't want to have the highest character in the room, right? I mean, I do, but
yeah.
If I do, something's wrong, right? Yeah. And in the groups I hang around with, I probably have the lowest character, which puts pressure on me that I'm going to get kicked out. Right. And so that's really important to me. And I always say to my 3 boys, the one thing I could brag on, look at, who I spend time with, look who my friends are. They've all been married 25 years or more. They're just great. They're just really good in so many categories. Good. And, and now I have old friends that, it's okay to get together with them once a year. But if I got together with too much, I'd start, maybe going down that path and having one too many and not getting home on the time I promise and all that. But I really think who we surround ourselves with is critical.
That's a great way to end. John, my friend, it's been great to have you on. Speaking of surrounding you, not only do you have great books, great podcasts, have been a great speaker, you put on a great event if people want to, improve their client experience. Maybe just share for everyone what is the best way for everyone who listens to this to connect with you from here.
Yeah. TheDiJuliusGroup.com, TheDiJuliusGroup.com, John at TheDiJuliusGroup.com, email, and then John DiJulius on all the social media channels.
Awesome. I appreciate you, buddy. For everyone listening, we've received a ton of great feedback from many of you, which we appreciate. If you love this episode, do me a favor, share it on social media, text it to a friend to listen to. Always appreciate 5-star reviews so everyone knows this is a good use of their time. And as we leave, a reminder, our world needs great leaders now more than ever before, so go be great. John, I appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you.